This movie is about the freeze panes functionality. We're going to quickly be able to freeze the top row, so it's always displayed, or the first column. We can freeze columns and rows simultaneously, and we can freeze some rows that aren't at the top, but we can make them display at the top of our worksheet. I have a worksheet set up that has some financial information about the stocks that are traded on the NASDAQ Stock Exchange. And this is all of the stocks that are traded on the NASDAQ Stock Exchange. I'm going to press End down arrow. There was, at the time that this data was developed, almost 6,000 stocks that were traded. Press an End right arrow. This list goes all the way to column BX. So it's a lot of data. Pressing Control Home to get me back up to A1. We have some issues with trying to utilize this data. If I page down one time, I lose the column headings. And as I'm arrowing over, I really don't know what this information pertains to. 350, 220, 570, what is that? Obviously, I can't tell. And if I go over to the right to column P, I don't even have the company name displayed in column A anymore, so I don't know what company this 940 pertains to, and I don't know what the 940 is to boot. So we can fix these things. Control Home to get back to A1. I'm going to arrow down to the first row that I want displayed, and left-click the View tab, and then left-click the drop-down Freeze Panes, and I'm going to left-click Freeze Top Row. And what that does is exactly what you might think it does, which is to freeze the top row, so when I page down, I still get the column labels, and now I know what these numbers are. I still have the problem where when I go to column P, I no longer have the name of the company displayed. Control Home once again. I can arrow over once to the right to column B, left-click Freeze Panes, and then left-click Freeze the first column. And when I do that, I freeze column A, so my company names continue to be displayed as I arrow over to column P. I still know this is Agilent Technologies. And I can, of course, continue over to the right as far as I need to. But when I page down, I've lost my column labels. Control Home. Selecting the cell that I want to freeze the panes both above and to the left of, left-clicking Freeze Panes. I'm going to unfreeze the panes, left-click Freeze Panes, and then select the first option. And the graphic display shows you what's going to happen. I'm going to freeze both the column and the row labels at the same time. So I can go over to column P at Agilent Technologies and go down one page, 2 pages, and I don't lose my column labels or row labels. I have another worksheet set up with the same data, only I've got some header information that maybe I want to maintain a view of. It tells me where I got the data from, and for some reason, maybe I want to keep that there. But I don't need row 1 and 2 displayed because they're blank. There's no information there. So what I want to do is freeze rows 3 to 10 at the top of my worksheet. Well, the way to do that is to left-click this down arrow twice so that the content that I want displayed is now at the top of what is displayed. Left-click the first cell that's going to be below the rows that are going to be frozen. Left-click Freeze Panes. And since I'm all the way over to the left, I can left-click Freeze Panes, and I am just creating a horizontal frozen pane and not a vertical one. So the result we're getting is actually displaying two different things. We have frozen rows 3 to 10, and even though we selected Freeze Panes, which would normally freeze a vertical and a horizontal pane, since we were in column A, the Freeze Panes functionality just gave us a horizontal pane. Unfreezing the panes, what I really wanted to do was to freeze column A and everything above row 11. And in order to do that, I need to make B11 the active cell, which is what I've done. Left-click the drop-down, and then click Freeze Panes. And now I've accomplished the display that's going to do me the most good. I have my content displayed at the top. Rows 3 to 10 are frozen. Column A is frozen, so I can navigate around my data and have my row labels and column labels available. And when I control home to get back to the upper left-hand corner of the data, I have the origin of the data, which is what I wanted to display, at the top of the screen. So that's freeze panes. We froze the top row and we froze the first column, which many times that will satisfy your need. Sometimes you need to freeze more than that, and you can simultaneously freeze columns and rows by selecting the cell that's within your worksheet. And clicking on Freeze Panes will freeze a pane that's above the active cell and to the left of the active cell. If you want to create a horizontal pane, select Freeze Panes when you're in column A, and if you want to create a vertical pane, select Freeze Panes when you're in row 1. We also use the Freeze Panes functionality to freeze rows that were not just at the top of the worksheet.